I'm back. I've been away for a few days, so in the interest of time and convenience, my own time and convenience that is, I'm going to combine several stories into this one video. Let's start off with Devin Haney. Again, I didn't do a post-fight video immediately afterwards because I didn't see the fight immediately afterwards. But Devin Haney beat Yuriorkis Gamboa on a 12-round UD. Now, Devin Haney did manage to get through the fight unscathed. He didn't get touched up at all. And of course, he wasn't in there against a severely compromised Gamboa the way that Gervonta Davis was, because he had a serious leg issue. And because of that, that hampered his ability to fight back and to do anything. Gamboa was down multiple times in that fight. Against Devin Haney, he wasn't down at all. And for a guy who, when you look back through the history of his career, was always a bit chinny, the fact that Devin Haney was able to catch him so clean on numerous occasions and Yuriorkis Gamboa was seemingly unaffected, I think it's a fair critique by some people to question Devin Haney's punching power. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree that he is lacking in the punching power department, but it is a fair criticism. It's fair comment. I can't, say anything against the people who claim that Haney has questionable power at this stage if he's unable to hurt a guy who has been down numerous times in his career. And if we go to Gamboa's record here, does it actually say? So he was down against Gervonta Davis. He was down against Jason Sosa. He's been down in so many fights. Down, of course, against Terence Crawford. And he's been hurt in a lot of fights as well. Never mind just the number of times he's been down. He's also been hurt in a bunch of fights. So anyway, without going into that, at 38 years of age and fighting above his natural weight class, really, against a big guy at 135 pounds who wasn't able to put a dent in him. But nonetheless, I thought Haney put up a good boxing performance. He boxed within himself. He was hitting and not getting hit. And at only 21 years of age, I think it was a mature performance. I know people, or a lot of people anyway, are very impressed by Tank Davis, especially following his knockout win over Leo Santa Cruz. And Tank Davis is also very young, isn't he? How old is Tank Davis? Devin Haney's 21. Tank Davis is 26. Okay, so he's several years older than Devin Haney. And the reason I bring that up is because Tank Davis hasn't been as professional as Devin Haney. He's allowed himself to balloon up in weight in between fights. He's been out and about with Adrian Broner. He's been getting into issues outside the ring. And he hasn't always been focused inside the ring. His defense has left a lot to be desired. So I think the fact that Devin Haney appears to be more of a consummate professional, at least right now, that will stand him in good stead moving forward. And according to his co-promoter, Eddie Hearn, and when I say co-promoter, Devin Haney is partly promoted by himself under Devin Haney Promotions. Is it called Devin Haney Promotions? Whatever his promotional company is called. Him and his dad, they have their own promotional company. And they also employ Eddie Hearn to help them promote. And Eddie says that the most logical next move for Devin Haney is to fight the winner of Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell, which of course has been postponed. We all know the reason why. The less said about that, the better, at least here on YouTube. But let's see if that fight gets postponed, gets rescheduled for the not too distant future. And then, yeah, Devin Haney versus the winner of that is a great fight. I don't have any issue with it. Would I like to see Devin Haney versus Tank Davis versus Teofimo Lopez, those kind of fights? Yes, I would. But you certainly can't grumble at Devin Haney versus certainly Ryan Garcia. If Ryan Garcia beats Luke Campbell. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Were you impressed by Devin Haney's performance against Tank Davis? Were you disappointed? How far do you think he can go? Are you someone who is critical of his punching power? Who thinks that he won't be able to hang with the likes of Teofimo Lopez, Tank Davis, these kind of guys who appear to hit a bit harder? Drop your comments in the comment section below and let me know your view. So moving on to this story here about Callum Johnson and him being in boxing purgatory due to the Hearn-Gallagher row. Now, it's pretty, it's pretty disappointing to see a fighter in this kind of position. And essentially, Callum Johnson is siding with his manager, Joe Gallagher, and blaming Eddie Hearn. And he seems quite crestfallen in this interview. I'm not going to read it all out. Any of you can go look it up on Boxing Scene. I'm just going to give you a flavor of what he says in here. And he's talking about how he's been struggling his whole career for opportunities because he turned pro, what was it? Something like, is it 10 years ago? And he's only had 19 fights. Yeah, 10 years ago. And he's only had 19 fights, which is pretty bad. He's now 35 years of age. And he's wondering whether his opportunity to actually make life-changing sums of money will ever come. Because for the Beterbiev fight, he alludes to the fact that he really didn't make much money. He took that fight for the opportunity. The only fight where he says he was looked after by Matchroom, and when I say looked after, I'm assuming he means financially, was the Shawnee Monahan fight. But other than that, he says the offers that he's received from Matchroom subsequently, like for the proposed Joshua Buatsi fight, and I think a couple of other fights, weren't fair offers in his opinion. Now, Eddie Hearn has said that MTK, who represent Callum Johnson, well, actually, is Joe Gallagher? Oh, no, he is. Yeah, he is manager. I'm just reading here because Eddie Hearn was alluding to MTK being happy with the offer that Callum Johnson got to fight Joshua Buatsi. But maybe he's got several managers. Maybe MTK and Joe Gallagher manage him. I know Joe Gallagher trains him too. So, anyway, Callum Johnson is a free agent, so Eddie Hearn is not obligated to offer him any opportunities. But Hearn has turned a bit spiteful towards the Joe Gallagher team. And that means that Johnson can't get a fight on one of Eddie Hearn's shows. And it really is mainly an Eddie Hearn, Joe Gallagher beef. And according to Hearn, Gallagher gets in the ear of his fighters and convinces them that Eddie Hearn doesn't have their best interests at heart and that he's shortchanging them and he's not giving them the best type of offers, etc. See, the problem is, although Joe Gallagher appears to be really fighting his, fighting the corner of his charges, in this instance, and maybe in many other instances, it has backfired. You see, the art of being a manager isn't just going out there like a bull in a china shop and demanding this and that from promoters. There has to be an element of subtlety about it. You have to know how to be diplomatic. Because if not, you can get situations like this where the promoter decides to blackball you and not give you any work at all for you or any of your fighters. So Joe Gallagher's pressure, the pressure he thought he was applying to Eddie Hearn, has now backfired. And the fighters are siding with Gallagher, at least Callum Johnson is in this interview. But if he looked at the big picture, he wouldn't be siding with Joe Gallagher. Even though Joe Gallagher may have his best interests at heart, because of the way he's gone about the situation, he's made Callum Johnson's position worse now. Callum Johnson's not in a better position now than he was before Joe Gallagher made his comments, is he? So we'll see where he goes from here. Will Joe Gallagher try work with Frank Warren? Will they try to take Callum Johnson abroad? I don't know. But it's sad to see a fighter who does have a degree of talent, who gave Artem Beterbiev all he could handle for the rounds that he was in that fight, managed to put him down. It's sad to see him at the age of 35 not getting the opportunities to make the most out of his ability while he's still young enough. And he's getting on in age, obviously, particularly for a super middleweight. Excuse me, a light heavyweight. So, now, I say that it's Joe Gallagher who may have put Callum Johnson in this position, but Callum Johnson did turn down a 4-fight deal from Eddie Hearn. But again, was it Joe Gallagher who got in his ear and told him to turn it down? Convinced him to turn it down? And if so, maybe he should look at Gallagher and say, can I get out of this management contract or, training contract, whatever it is? I don't know the ins and outs of that situation with Gallagher. But if he's just being totally objective and if he really is crestfallen about the way his career is going, you can't afford to be loyal. You have to do what's in your best interest, even if it means getting rid of Gallagher, who you think has your best interest at heart. If he can't do the right kind of job for you, irrespective of what his intentions are, you got to get rid of him. Is that real? Got to get rid of him? Maybe go back to Eddie Hearn and say, look, I'm not with Gallagher no more. Can you work with me directly? What offers can you give me? So let me know. And actually, by the way, according to Hearn, when Callum Johnson received the offer, I think the 4-fight offer, which was going to be 2 fights, then a 3rd fight, which would be against Buatsi, and then a 4th fight against somebody else. And when he received that offer, it was just flat out rejected, according to Hearn, by Team Johnson. There wasn't any, negotiation about it like, okay, can you pay us a bit more? Or this is not right in the contract, that's not right in the contract. It was just flat out rejected, and there was no further conversation, and there was no talk of what they wanted. This is according to Hearn. And is that a Joe Gallagher move, where he's trying to play hardball rather than being a bit more diplomatic about the situation? Because Eddie Hearn has been talking about how Joe Gallagher is a nightmare for years now. And Hearn wasn't as... It's not like Eddie Hearn has fallen out with Joe Gallagher just because of this one situation. No, this has been something that has been building up for a long time between Hearn and Gallagher. If you've been paying attention to the stuff Hearn has said about Gallagher over the years in many, many interviews, you could tell that there was tension there. And the longer it went on, the more overt Eddie Hearn became about the issues he was having with Joe Gallagher behind the scenes. So, sad situation. But let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. What should Callum Johnson do right now? Who's in the wrong? Is it Gallagher? Is it Hearn? Is it Johnson? Let me know. Okay, next story here is to do with this new WBC weight division called Bridgerweight. And this is a division named after a 6-year-old who was injured in a dog attack. His name was Bridger, apparently. So they've named the weight division partly after him. I say partly because Bridger is like what a bridge between 2 divisions. So, yeah, it'll be between 200 and 224 pounds. In English money, that is 14 stone, was it 14 stone 4? And 16 stone. very few people who I've seen on social media and who I've spoken to are, enthused about this new weight division. Most people don't like the name and they don't like the concept of having this division because many have tried it in the past. They tried it under the name the Super Cruiserweight division and it never caught on. And Bridgerweight, maybe I'll be proven wrong in the future, but it just doesn't have a ring to it, like a ring of success to it, It doesn't. Bridgerweight. And how many of the other sanctioning bodies are going to follow suit? Eddie Hearn has said that he thinks it would be more logical to have a division between light, heavy, and cruiser. And I can see a case for both. I can see a case for a super cruiserweight division or bridgerweight, and I can see a case for a division between light, heavy, and cruiser. But a lot of the resistance to new weight divisions is because it breaks from tradition. And boxing fans are very stuck in their ways about the traditional weight classes. There's always resistance whenever they bring in new weight classes. But this may sound simplistic, but I think it's true. When you had super middleweight introduced, people accepted it because it didn't conflict with the continuity between the lightest divisions and the heaviest divisions. So after middle, then you used to have light heavy. So we can interject a new weight class in between them called super middle. So it's not quite light heavy, but it's bigger than middle. And the name reflects that. But even with cruiserweight, when they put that in there, it wasn't popular, and it still isn't a particularly popular division, but it wasn't popular because, hang on, light heavy is the logical division prior to heavyweight. It's right there in the name. They're light heavyweights. But then you put cruiserweight in there and you're thinking, hang on, light heavyweight should be the division before heavyweight, not cruiser. You see it? And I think a lot of the resistance to new weight divisions is simply down to that. Again, as simplistic as it sounds. So we'll see what happens here with this new bridger weight, but I'll be surprised if it catches on. The WBC do seem to have a lot more clout than the other sanctioning bodies for whatever reason. Maybe it's because the president of the WBC, Mauricio Sulaiman, at least partly, this is partly the reason, because Mauricio Sulaiman is a lot more public than the presidents of the other sanctioning bodies. He's on public display a lot more often, does a lot more interviews, etc. Whereas the other guys are not as accessible. So maybe that's what it is. But let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. And by the way, their initial idea was to reduce the cruiserweight division limit to 190 pounds because that's what it used to be prior to, the early 2000s. I think it was David Haye, when he fought Carl Thompson, fought at the new 200-pound weight limit. So it was around then when they changed it. It was just before David Haye fought Carl Thompson. It was 190 pounds. And initially, with the new bridgerweight situation, the WBC were looking to reduce it to 190 pounds again, and that would address the issue of light heavyweights moving up to cruiserweight, because there are a lot of light heavyweights who are so big for the division for 175 pounds, but they're too small, really, to fight 200-pound men. So if they reduced the cruiserweight division limit again to 190 pounds, it would make it easier for those light heavyweights moving up. And then bridgerweight would be between 190 and 224. I personally think that the first idea was better than this next idea, would have scrapped the 190-pound limit. I think that they should put the 190-pound limit in if they want to do this, okay? And maybe they shouldn't do it at all. Maybe we should just stick with the weight divisions we have. But if they insist on doing it, I think they should bring cruiserweight back down to 190 pounds. And I think the bridgerweight limit should be 210. I don't think it should be 224. I think it should be maybe 210. So cruiserweight is up to 190. And then bridgerweight is from 190 to 210. And everything above 210 is a heavyweight. And that would allow the likes of Usyk, Michael Hunter, Deontay Wilder, and all these smaller heavyweights to still be fighting for the heavyweight championship. Now, Mauricio Solomon did say that fighters who are, small and within the bridgerweight weight range, they'll be given the option to be ranked at heavyweight rather than bridgerweight. But I have to imagine that eventually, is that going to be phased out? Or will that continuously be an option for, every fighter, where they can choose, despite the fact that they're lighter than the heavyweight minimum, they can still qualify to fight at that weight division. And at the same time, they can qualify to fight that bridgerweight, of course, because they meet the weight restriction. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Bridgerweight. Do you like the name? Do you like the concept? Do you think it will catch on? Or do you think it should be scrapped and will be eventually? All right, Kell Brook says that he's rooting for, Amir Khan says that he's rooting for Kell Brook against Terence Crawford this weekend. Amir Khan has, one of the most impressive things Khan has done, more impressive than his win over Marcus Maidana, Devin Alexander, and a few other good wins he's had over the years. More impressive than that has been his dedication to trolling Kell Brook. Khan has made it his life's work to torment this man, to mess with his head, to pretend like he wants to fight him when he never had any intention of doing so. And I think that Khan right here with Kell Brook is not being sincere. I think this is more mind games by Khan, pretending that he's, backing Brook to go and get revenge on Crawford. But if you really think about it, Amir Khan doesn't want Brook to do better against Crawford than he did, does he? That's not going to make him look good in relation to Brook. If Brook goes out there and he's highly competitive and he gives Terence Crawford loads of problems or wins, then it's going to add more credence to the claim that Khan was afraid of Kell Brook and that Khan would have destroyed Kell Brook had they fought. So I think there's some reverse psychology going on here with Amir Khan. Maybe he's, hoping that by saying something like this to Kell Brook, he'll get the opposite result. Sometimes people believe that wishful thinking can backfire. And when you're really hoping for something to happen and you come out and say it based upon a wish, it's doomed for failure. So why not do the opposite? When there's something that you really don't want to happen, come out and say, oh yeah, I really want it. Sounds convoluted, but some people think this way. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Amir Khan claiming that he's rooting for Kell Brook against Terence Crawford, saying that he can win. Personally, I think that Kell Brook can win as well. But can is different than will. I think he can. He's got the size, the punching power. I know he hasn't fought at 147 for a long time, but he hasn't kept himself in shape in between fights for most of his career. This time he has. And from what I've seen, he's looking sharp. He's looking in good condition. I think he's got as good a chance as any other Terence Crawford opponent that he's fought so far at 147 pounds. So let's see. I see this as maybe 60-40 in Terence Crawford's favor, maybe 65-35. So if Kell Brook was to pull off the upset, it wouldn't be a massive shock. Kell Brook, was a quality welterweight. So let's see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about Amir Khan's comments here. Okay, moving on. All right, I haven't even watched this video actually, so I'm not going to talk about that. All right, in this interview here, was it this one? Yeah. In this interview, Eddie Hearn was talking about the news that the next fight they're looking to make for Filip Hrgović is the Michael Hunter fight. I mean, that is great news for both men, by the way, for Michael Hunter and for Hrgović, because Hunter's been desperately trying to get a big fight, and Hrgović has desperately needed a step up for a long time now. So this is killing two birds with one stone. It's a win-win situation for both men. And if both guys are up for it, and apparently they are, then may the best man win. And it's us boxing fans who win the most. Irrespective of who loses the fight, boxing fans win. So what do you guys think? Michael Hunter versus Filip Hrgović. Filip Hrgović is undefeated. Michael Hunter only has the one loss to Alexander Usyk back down at cruiserweight. He's undefeated as a heavyweight. He's had some good wins over the likes of Martin Bakole, Sergey Kuzmin, a draw with Povetkin. So he's definitely fought the better opposition so far as a professional. Filip Hrgović has fought pretty much cream puffs other than, who was it now? Who's that? Molina. But Molina never really came to fight. Molina isn't a fighter with the greatest will in the world. Against Deontay Wilder, he showed the most spirit that he's ever shown in his career. But other than the Wilder fight, yeah, he hasn't shown that much internal, fortitude. So Hrgović really hasn't fought anybody as a pro. Michael Hunter has definitely been getting the better work. Let's see how that translates into a fight. I think it will be competitive. I think it will be very interesting. Filip Hrgović is likely to be a favorite, and I think rightfully so. And to me, I see that maybe as like a, I want to say 55-45 in Hrgovic's favor. Not quite a 50-50. I would slightly favor Hrgović. See, one of the things about Hrgović, he reminds me a lot of Vitaly Klitschko in his style. He's not quite as tall as Klitschko, but he's still tall. I think he's about 6'6", 6'5", 6'6". He reminds me a lot of Vitaly Klitschko in his style. He is, although he's not the most fluid heavyweight you've ever seen, he's pretty light on his feet for a big man, athletic and light on his feet. And that differentiates him from a lot of the other big guys. And he's fresh as well. He's a young guy, very fresh. I think he's 26 or something, 27, Hrgović. So, yeah, I think it's a real good fight between him and Hunter. I would slightly favor Hrgović, but only by maybe 5%. I think it's real competitive. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about that particular bout. And yeah, that's about it for this video. I've covered all the boxing stories that I intended to cover. And there will be more videos over the next few days. But like I said, I wanted to consolidate several into one video for my own convenience and hopefully for yours too. Until next time, until the next video, I'm out. If you'd like to access all my boxing content advert-free and enjoy the convenience of listening via a podcast app with the option to download in high-quality MP3, then consider joining me on Patreon. In addition to the aforementioned perks, you'll also gain access to exclusive weekly live stream Q&A sessions and hangouts, as well as uncensored, no-holds-barred uploads which are too blue for YouTube. This includes my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Boxing Extra. There's no contract, there's no commitment, it's only £2.50 a month, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of hardcore boxing enthusiasts by signing up with me here on Patreon today.